Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wolvic, Assembling the Pack. We're here to celebrate the launch of the only open source immersive only browser called Wolvic. Back in 2020, Mozilla discontinued development of the Firefox Reality browser. And last year, Igalia, a software consultancy headquartered in Galicia, Spain, with developers all around the world, picked up the open source code base, and now Firefox Reality has been reborn as Wolvic. So Igalia's customers included Google, Apple, Mozilla, Microsoft, Meta, Comcast, Vorwerk, Bloomberg, Salesforce, Brave, and many, many others. So they're very well equipped to do this job. They're well known among browser implementers, standards, and graphics spheres, but maybe not so well known to the broader public. So we'll have a conversation with the community about the significance of this project and look ahead to see what the future holds. So stay with us for the next 2 hours as we take a deep dive into Wolvic. First, I'll be having a conversation with Brian Kardell and Sergio Villar from Igalia to introduce you to Wolvic and how this browser came to be. We'll see a few videos of Wolvic in action and talk about the opportunities created by this important undertaking. Then after that, W3C Immersive Web co-chair Aysegul Yonet will join us with updates from inside the working group building the WebXR specification. Then Aysegul will stay for a panel with Erwin discussing the importance of WebXR, featuring Mats Lundgren, Director of Technical Business Development at FutureWay, Jonthan Hale, CEO and CTO of Wonderland Engine, Elijah Tai, CEO and CTO of Zesty Market, and Keith Chan, professor at Miracosta College. Then Brian Kardell, who's the developer advocate for Igalia, will join us to talk about the roadmap for Wolvic and their open collective. Julie Smithson will then come on to have a conversation with James Kaplan, CEO of MeetKai, who will take us in depth to talk about the quality that's possible to achieve within WebXR, integration and use of AI both in assisted search and in development. And will also give us some demos of new and exciting WebXR experiences that are running on Wolvic. But that's not all. Stay with us to the end for a special wrap-up conversation with Diego Marcos, the creator of A-Frame. So let's kick off this thing with Brian Kardell and Sergio Villar of Igalia. And I'm going to welcome them to the stage. Welcome, gentlemen. Hi, Sergio. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Sophia.
Nice to see you guys. So
nice to see you too.
Let's open it off. So Mozilla laying off its mixed reality team in August of 2020 sent shockwaves as it pulled the plug on many different XR projects, including Firefox Reality. So let's start there. So building and maintaining a browser is not a trivial commitment to make. So tell us about your work at Igalia and how you came to choose Firefox Reality to build.
Sure. So Igalia is a really unique company. We're a consultancy founded 21 years ago, entirely focused on open source and free software. And we've been specializing in projects around the web since about 2012. And we're now major contributors to all the engines and very active in all the standards venues, W3C, TC39, WhatWig, Chronos, IETF. And I'll give some more examples and charts and information perspective about this in my talk later, but suffice to say, we really care about and watch this space a lot. And what we saw was seemed like kind of an inflection point for XR, and we were really happy that Firefox Reality existed. We even began doing some work Sergio did in our own WebKit port. We are the maintainers of the official WebKit port for embedded devices. And then we saw this shift that Firefox Reality was not going to graduate from Mozilla Labs. It was always a labs project, not a real flagship project. So we began discussing whether we could carry it forward. And eventually, after some discussion and prototyping, we approached Mozilla, and they were actually really thrilled to see someone that they're familiar with and have a lot of trust in carry on a really good labs project like that. So that's the story.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about Wolvic, maybe as it pertains to privacy, because I know that's something that you care about deeply.
Yeah. So first of all, I think one of the most important things is that Igale is an open source consulting company. So we basically are not interested at all on collecting or selling user data. That's not our business at all. Apart from that, Wolvic is, as most of the projects we do, is completely open source, meaning that all the code is available for third parties to review it, to audit it. Also, if you compare it with other solutions, in the case of Wolvic, we don't require any external account to make it work. You just install it and it's fully available for you. Of course, if you want to use some kind of advanced features like syncing of bookmarks, history, you can use your Firefox account to do that for you. But even that is a service provided by Mozilla, which is also pretty aware of all the privacy concerns. We don't collect basically any user data. We just collect some very anonymous and obviously non-identifying data to collect basic statistics and also crash reports that help us to improve the quality of the product. For those more concerned about privacy regarding, for example, using search engines, we have added the possibility of selecting your search engine of choice and also the voice engine used for voice recognition. Things like enhanced tracking protection, for example, is enabled by default in Wolvic. So no tracker, social media trackers, or cookies tracking you browsing across the web. And last but not least, if you want to kind of level up the level of privacy, you can always install extensions like ad blockers and things like that, as you do in your desktop browser.
Yeah, it's really nice that you're giving people the freedom and flexibility to implement whatever kind of privacy standards that they're looking to do within their own builds and experiences, because there's a variety of reasons of why people might want to or not want to collect data, and that should be free and open for people to decide on their own. So it's nice that you're enabling that.
I think it's also worth adding that like it is a web browser, and so WebXR already has a lot of scrutiny and it has different protections than a native app would. So a lot of the experiences that we deliver, there are all kinds of things that go into that about making sure that you have the user's consent and that they understand that they're moving into that. And then there are also things that prevent, in some cases, like full resolution information from even being gathered. So I think the web is generally already an important safety mechanism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually an important fact to state when going into this, because I'm sure a lot of people didn't really realize that. So yeah, I appreciate you calling that out. So the many people, even the technical people among us, don't really understand the stack above and beneath the WebXR API. Can you tell us a little bit more about how it allows JavaScript programmers to build immersive experiences?
Yeah, I think I can answer that. So yeah, I agree with you that we get many questions from developers with exactly the same doubts, and I think I kind of briefly explained that using kind of a top-to-bottom approach. So basically, web developers, in order to build WebXR experiences, basically need to use two JavaScript APIs. One of them being WebXR, of course, which is the API that allows you to access the devices, head-mounted displays, or any kind of virtual reality device you have attached to your computer. And then for the rendering, you will use the already existing WebGL or WebGL2 APIs. Of course, if you don't want to use them directly, there are several engines out there which allow you to develop your own experiences without having to deal with the specifics of the APIs. So that's the JavaScript level, which is on top, which is the one used by the developers. And then those APIs are implemented by what is called the web engine. The web engine is the piece of software that used by browsers to basically render the web pages, to run JavaScript. So in the case, for example, of the Firefox browser, it uses a web engine called Gecko, which is the one that we also use in Wolvic. That web engine basically gets the calls from the web developers. They do in JavaScript, and then it resolves them in different manners. Basically, this web engine needs to talk to the actual devices and get the information from those devices and return that to the developers using the WebXR API. The way the web engines talk to these devices can be done in many different ways, being the coolest one using OpenXR, because OpenXR is basically an API developed by Kronos, the same group that specifies, for example, OpenGL, OpenGLS, and many other graphics languages. And it's really cool because before OpenXR, each hardware vendor had their own SDK. So if you want to build something for Meta, for example, devices, you have to use the Meta SDK. Then you have the Pico SDK for Pico devices, and then you have the SDK from HTC for data devices. But right now, most of the vendors, if not all, are adopting OpenXR. So for web engines, it's really easy because they only need to implement all this communication using OpenXR. And that's it. It allows you to access many different devices. So basically, that's kind of a very brief summary of the three different layers: the application interface for developers, then the web engine, and in the end, the API used to talk to the devices.
That's super exciting. And I know you've prepared a video clip that shows a brief tour of some of Wolvic's features. So let's go ahead and roll the clip now and take a look.
In this video, I would like to walk you through the main features of the Wolvic browser. And about me, my name is Eduardo Lima, and I work for Igalia as part of the Wolvic's code development team. So let's start presenting Wolvic. Let's start by discussing this main menu, the panel in the front. We can see there are some buttons. The first one will open a new window. Here you see we see that the previous window was moved to the left. Now we can have we can browse a different website here, and then we can open yet another window. There are up to 3 windows we can have running at the same time, which is quite useful for multitasking. Let's close it again. The next button we have is the tabs. We'll show this little dialog with all the tabs open for this particular window we have in the back. And then we can close tabs from here. Pretty basic functionality that we see in most desktop browsers. Next, we have the incognito mode or the private browsing mode, which is similar to desktop browsers nowadays. We can close the mode by this clear button on top. We're back in normal mode. Then next we have this view where we can see the bookmarks that we have, then the history of the browser, downloads, and the extensions or add-ons. These are add-ons that are compatible with the desktop Firefox browser. Finally, we have the settings button. Okay, and then on top we have the information about the time, Wi-Fi, and the battery levels of the different devices that we're using. If we are using Firefox Sync, we could send a tab to another device. We can resize the window here, 2x, for example, 3x. Let's quickly check out the Wolvic's on-screen keyboard. It's a keyboard that we implement, and it has a nice keypad for numbers, which is kind of handy. Symbols. We can quickly select the language here. As you can see, the URL box will show some auto-completion as we type.
That's awesome. That's pretty exciting. There's some awesome like user interface features that I'm sure will be very helpful for those that are trying to access WebXR experiences, because I know that typing in a URL sometimes can be daunting. But for those who are familiar with Firefox Reality, and they recognize some of the elements that Wolvic inherited, such as that virtual keyboard. What embellishments have you made in Wolvic to build in the Wolvic build to enhance that user experience?
So as you mentioned, Sophia, there are many UI things that we basically inherit from Firefox Reality, and we kept them because they were good ideas. For example, as you mentioned, the keyboard is something we are not using the Android keyboard for that, but a customized keyboard, because many people actually have mentioned to us that they find it really convenient, especially with the numbers pad, who is always available, and most of the, as you mentioned, characters that you use for typing URLs. Some of the things that are not kind of obvious from the video that we have just seen are, for example, something that we mentioned before, like the integration with Firefox accounts, which I think is a pretty cool feature, as it allows you to do things like synchronizing your bookmarks, your history, or your passwords between Wolvic and desktop Firefox, even doing things like sending tabs from one device to another. And also there is, from the pure UI point of view, I think it's very important also that right now we have, if I'm not wrong, 21 available languages in Wolvic. So this localization effort is actually very, very important for many users.
Yeah, I mean, doing is helping to reduce the barriers to access content, and that is very important, right, including like, the multiple language options. So you're interoperable across languages and global regions as well as devices. And so that's super important. I mean, one of the things I've always loved about Firefox Reality's keyboard is that it has most of the characters that you need to type a URL, like a colon and slash and question marks, like right there on the keyboard without changing tabs. So I'm glad you kept that. Can you tell us more about some of the other updates that you've made in Wolvic?
Yeah, a lot of them are behind the scenes kind of things. There was a lot of bit rot by the time we had begun to take it up, both at the Gecko and OS integration levels. Since Firefox Reality development had stalled by the time we picked it up, it was way behind. And that affects a lot of things. Even something as simple as like the rendering of the keyboard were dramatically improved when we updated some of these things. So we've rebased it on a modern Gecko now, and we've got all that updated. We had some replumbing to do to restore Firefox Sync and Send, since we're not a Mozilla project anymore, but that's done. We had a lot of work to improve the project infrastructure. Like Sergio said, we have 21 languages we worked on, and there was improved work toward like choice around search functionality and voice search functionality, and lots of core browser features and tons of bug fixing, and some adaptations that I think Sergio will talk about a little bit later in terms of UA strings and feature detection. I hope we have time for that, but Yeah, so those are some of the things. I don't know, Sergio, do you have some other things you can?
Yeah, I was thinking now about, for example, one of the things that we have recently released is the kiosk mode. So it's basically a way to run Wolvic without any UI apart from the web page. So it's something that, for example, for exhibitors could be really useful. You just show your own experience in a fair, in a conference, or wherever. Then from the point of view of the, I mean, there is one thing in VR in general, which is kind of important, which is having good anti-aliasing. So having jag edge is really bad for both the stereoscopic effect and the feeling of immersiveness. Anti-aliasing is right now enabled by default in also browser platforms for WebXR sessions, which give us a much better quality, render quality. We work a lot also on things like basic use cases like playing YouTube videos. There are a bunch of different immersive videos and formats like 180 stereo, 360, top down, tons of different formats, and we try to make them work the best without much user intervention. Related to that, we have also enabled kind of an automatic selection for a mode which is called desktop mode for popular streaming sites like Hulu, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, all these kind of all these kind of services, which provide you different experiences if you are advertised as a mobile browser, but we kind of pretend to be a desktop browser, so you get the full experience on these streaming sites. There are also other things that there are not clear use cases right now, but we think they are pretty interesting. Like, for example, we have implemented the support for something which is called PushKit. Is a technology by Huawei, which is actually cross-platform, but this kind of thing allows us to do cloud-to-device messaging. So we can, like select a specific set of users or even specific devices to send messages to, like, hey, can you try this new update or check out this new experience or something like that. This is something to be defined, but the support is already there. And yeah, I think there, as Brian said, there are a lot of things, but these are probably the most important ones.
You guys really have some foresight in the planning and have really developed a well-rounded product for both for use now and for well into the future. And definitely seems like you have the infrastructure there to kind of support the growth of the industry and the technology. But besides being open source, Wolvic is the only browser to run on multiple platforms, like you said, including MetaQuest, Huawei VR Glass, and HTC Vive Focus. So let's take a look at some of the types of experiences that Wolvic enables and how it also enables the same experiences across multiple devices. So let's run that clip and take a look at some of the examples.
Another thing that we can explore quickly is the start page. It's a page that is maintained by Galia and has a curated list of experiences, mostly VR experiences, but there's also some websites that are not necessarily VR, but might be handy for users. On the top, we have these two toggle buttons, the 3-dot friendly, which will filter the content in this page to only show those that are available to 3-dot devices, like 3 degrees of freedom devices only. And we also have a switch that will filter experiences and show only those that are available in mainland China. We have ambitious plans for this page in the future. and we're probably gonna integrate the bookmarks, history, apps, and much more content from the web. Okay, now that we have checked out most of the most important options in the Wolvic UI, let's move on to actually trying some VR content. This nice experience, the Moonrider
I love Moonrider.
application. Let's try something quickly.
It is a lot of fun.
Let's check out some immersive video here in the Air Panel YouTube channel. Once we click full screen, we're gonna get into immersive mode. The Wolvic will detect it's a 360 video and we'll open immersive mode directly when we click full screen. It's quite a nice experience. Yeah, we have some controllers for videos. Let's go back. Of course, there are much more content online that we can explore, and Wolvic is the window to this content. Great. I think this is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and got to know better how Wolvic works and all the features it has. If you have the chance, please try it out. And if so, any feedback is very welcome. See you next time.
That's awesome. So you guys are going to set the standard that full screen now denotes 360 immersive. So that's just what the new standard is. Full screen is 360 immersive. So it's great to see how Wolvic works across these devices. And like I said, the capability will really expand the reach of developers to more WebXR users, which will ultimately exponentially help further adoption across the industry. So tell us now about your goals for what's coming next for Wolvic, what your plans are for the near future. I mean, will you be making Wolvic available on more XR platforms? What's that roadmap look like?
I think I can start talking about the kind of the short-term goals that we have, especially for the end of the year and the beginning of the next one. So as you mentioned, we are working hard on having multi-backend architecture, meaning that right now we are using the Gecko web engine, but our plan is to move also to Chromium, which will give us several new features like WebXR implementation or WebXR layers also as well in the future. We are already working a lot on things like hand tracking support. We expect to have some kind of initial support in the short term, as well as something that many people is asking for, which are PWAs. Progressive web apps are in general very interesting for many people. And also, there is this thing which is kind of pretty basic stuff for desktop browser, which are dialogues for uploading or downloading files, which are kind of a little bit challenging in VR, especially in Wolvic, because we cannot just simply use Android standard dialogues for that, because we are running in this full screen 3D immersive environment. But we will fix that. And I think there is also in the short term probably support for a really cool device, which is the Lynx R1, and perhaps another one coming soon. I will hand it over to Brian for more medium and long-term goals.
I think you're muted.
Sorry, trying to keep the sound quality excellent there. Yeah, so for the slightly longer term, I'll try to keep it brief. Like starting in the second half of 2023 through 2024, we are looking at support for XR layers, enhanced hand tracking, adding initial AR features, which I'm personally very excited about, especially with the Lynx R1. Can't wait to use that for things like pass-through and projecting to a wall, initial eye tracking support, and similar core browser features, actually, like web payments integration, and better integration with peripherals, which can be really useful. And I'm actually sure we'll see lots more innovation around given these new environments. But also prototyping some new 3D UI elements and really carrying forward some of the innovative thinking that happened in labs about how you make a browser in a space like this. So we'll talk some more about that in my talk later. But I guess the only other big thing that we would like to complete in that time is a full prototype of a WebKit-based backend for Wolvic as well.
That's so excited. I'm personally looking forward to the pass-through WebXR experiences to come to light, especially with the new updates and releases of all these pass-through enabled devices. So we're getting ready to bring on our next panel. But before we go, please tell the community how we can support your efforts to grow Wolvic.
Yeah, so you can find us on GitHub. You can just search for Wolvic. It's Egalio/Wolvic on GitHub, and contribute whatever way you can. There's all different kinds of ways that people can help. You can open issues, you can request features, you can fix bugs, or you could submit pull requests. Those are all really helpful. We'll be talking in my talk about another way, a collective. You can watch my presentation later, so please do that. Sergio, do you have maybe some other?
Yeah, I mean, I will say perhaps the best first step is just use it. I mean, like download it, try it, and then do what Brian said. Give us, feedback, bug reports, even pull requests. That would be really awesome. And if you are a developer, just use it to test your own experience. And if you allow me to say this, please don't use user agent filtering for your WebXR experience. It's much better to check for capabilities because we have been here just for less than a year, and there are right now a bunch of WebXR experiences that run perfectly in Wolvic, but basically some server-side filtering looking for the meta browser is not allowing us to run correctly unless we pretend to be the meta browser in some of those experiences. So please don't use user agents.
Can I add a small plug in here? My colleague Eric Meyer and I do a podcast for Egalio. And we have a whole episode. If you go to egalio.com and look at the 24/7 chats, there's a whole episode on the UA string, and we talk about some of this. And it's a bigger problem than you would imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, it's good to know. Yeah, you guys have provided a lot of resources, and for anybody else that's looking to get in touch, we'll definitely have that information for you guys. And if you're on our Discord, we'll be sure to post all of that. But thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing all these insights into Wolvic. We are so grateful for your work on the only open source immersive browser. So if you haven't installed it yet, go to wolvic.com for the links. So next we have a special guest, Aysegul Yonet, the W3C chair of the Immersive Web Working Group. The WebXR spec has made a lot of forward progress this year, particularly on augmented reality. Aysegul is here to give us the scoop on some important updates that just shipped. Then Aysegul will stay with us for a panel on the importance of WebXR. So thank you, Jen, and Brian, we'll see you later today. Hi, Aysegul.
Bye.
And Aysegul, I believe you're muted. And then I'm going to go, and I'll join you guys later. And you might have to adjust the audio in the settings. No. Well, we can bring Ben on with the panel and have you work on your audio while the panel is going, because I know you are going to be joining that panel anyways. So Ben, if you want to bring up the panelists and start your panel, Aysegul will work on her audio in the meantime.
Hi, Sophia, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. I know we have a few others that are joining us, so we'll just wait for people to pop on stage.
Yeah, we were all talking in the back room a few minutes ago, than others, so it worked perfectly.
They'll come filtering on. Hey, Ben. And they're joining. Jonthan, Keith, hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I have an echo here. Apologize. We're very excited to hear Aysegul's updates here. Actually, I'm going to throw to Mats first with our first question here. We're going to do things a little bit out of order until we get things sorted out here. And so Mats, FutureWays made a big investment in the WebXR ecosystem. Could you talk a little bit about what's behind the work that you guys are doing from the business perspective on the importance of WebXR?
Of course, thank you, Ben. So let's start first with the PC. As we know today, studies have shown that 60% of the time, at least, we're using the web and web apps, and maybe even more, including myself. And the reason for that is clear. Everything I really need today is the stuff I need is on the internet. And yet we haven't seen this kind of moment on the VR HMDs, but the time is there. I'm convinced the web will also win in WebXR. WebXR, as we all know, provides some great capabilities. You can join with just a link. You can work across devices all over the world. But for WebXR to really win and to be supported, the use cases need to be expanded. We need to see more use of PWAs. In WebXR, payment must be easier, voice assistance must be better and easier to use. And from FutureWays side, we are investing in the WebXR ecosystem. Last year, we started our partnership with Galia that you start to get Wolvic in place and have it supported across the devices. Now the browser is here. We are looking into how we can support different frameworks to help drive better experience, as well as making it easier for the end users to add content. We have yet to see what will be the TikTok moment for WebXR. And once we see this experience coming into place, we also need to find ways to monetize, and we are working on plans to support that in 2023 and beyond. That's a short intro. Thank you.
Thank you, Mats. Again, I apologize for that echo setting that I had there. Aysegul, can we get a mic check?
Hi. Hi, how
There
are you?
Hey, thank you so much for joining us. Aysegul agreed to join us yesterday, and she's got some updates for us from the W3C Immersive Web Working Group. This was supposed to happen before all of us came on here, but we're going to pick up the importance of WebXR panel with all of us in a few minutes. But Aysegul, please take it away.
Sure. Hi, everyone. This has been a very exciting year for us at the Immersive Web Working Group and the community group. We were able to publish the candidate recommendation this year for WebXR and augmented reality modules, which means that they are going to be stable and implementers can start implementing and it's not going to change, which is great. And Gamepad API is about to be also published. The work has been done. It's just going through the reviews. The other good news for us is our charter has been extended 2 more years, which means that we have our work plan for the next 2 years. And we are hoping that some of the community group work will move to our working group and get on the track of being published as our spec. And well, there's some excitement about the model element and navigation. Those are the hot topics that we've been discussing in the community and working group. And we are hoping that there will be more participation from the implementers, from the browser implementers and engine implementers like yourself. That's pretty much it, but I can go into details if you have any questions, Ben.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited, particularly for the navigation API. Our meta traversal thing was all about getting portals working across this, and it really is in the W3C's domain to get navigation working. And what we're all hoping is that at some point we'll be able to traverse the metaverse through navigation portal APIs that make everything interoperable. But before we switch the panel, the one thing that I think everybody is thinking about is with the release of the Quest Pro last week and the mixed reality pass-through that is going on there, and some of the AR capabilities with the new module and so forth. Could you tell us a little bit about the updates to the AR module that just shipped?
Well, AR module has been in pretty good shape for a while now. So it's talking about, starting a pass-through session, and there are other modules that we are working on, like lighting estimation, that makes working with AR very interesting, and also not in part of the AR module. So we do have a bunch of modules, right? Not in the AR module. Something that's interesting to me, very interesting to me, is the anchors. And Oculus browser just implemented the persistent anchors. It's still experimental, but that means that in a pass-through environment, in an AR environment, you can leave some information into specific places and anchor them on specific places, and they are going to be persisting for the next sessions as well. So it won't go away. I can leave some notes for you and you can take a look, which is really exciting.
Well, thank you so much. It really is exciting. I can't wait to see all the developers come up with WebXR AR experiences. We've been waiting for years, and now we have a device that supports it. So we're hoping that come by the end of the year that a lot of developers out there will submit AR enabled applications for Poly for this year. So with that, I'm going to now transition us to the full panel setting here. Let me switch over. So I was going to go first, but since I didn't have my mic ready and I had Mats go first, I'm going to call upon Jonthan. Now, good morning, Jonthan, or good afternoon in Europe.
Good afternoon.
How are you? It's great to see you again. And I was wondering if you could sort of give us the engine builder's perspective of, how having additional software available for developers to be able to reach an audience is going to help.
So I guess for anyone on the web, and especially for us as engine builders, it's amazing to have this unified platform that we can target. Right. So for any developer building an XR app right now, if he builds on native, he needs to deploy his application multiple times and deploy it, submit it to multiple app stores. The web unifies all of that and represents a single target that you can deploy to, upload, and then it's just accessible from everywhere. The ease of access to a link makes the web just like amazingly shareable and just like super fast to get into, low friction to get people into your application. And I think it just makes everything more simple and more fun to work with, right? Effectively 4 years ago, that's what we saw. And we were like, oh, so it's much easier to deploy. It's much easier to access for the web, and it's cross-platform. All the devices supported at the same time. Especially now with Wolvic, we have another really strong browser that brings many new devices into WebXR and allows you to even support devices that aren't out yet, right? And like, imagine that. I mean, you can already support the Lynx XR1, for example, without having ever had a dev kit or any other device that might be released in the future. 4 years ago, we tried building a bunch of these experiences, and we found it was actually really difficult to do, and we didn't have the support of the development tools that we were used to on native with like all the big engines. And we figured, wow, it's actually amazing how much low-level optimization we need to do. And that led us to build Wonderland Engine to relieve these kinds of jobs from the developers and allow them to focus on their applications and their users so that we can take care of the low-level optimizations for them.
That was great. Thank you, Jonathan. Wonderland Engine has been doing such a great job giving creators a tool that they can not just publish WebXR experiences, but high-end experiences with that are highly performant with frame rates. I love one that comes to mind is Santa's Workshop last year that SourceScoot created, and it just had all these beautiful textures and it flowed so well. So congratulations, and please continue the great work, because it's an indispensable tool for the creators. And
performance is always super important for VR. Just the comfort in VR is amazing.
It really
with that,
is.
I think I want to highlight what Matt said before around the challenges that we might still have. We need to focus more on PWAs, fix monetization, make it more easy to monetize. And I think there's no one who has such a holistic approach to helping WebXR right now as FutureWay. So I want to thank them personally for sponsoring this space and helping, especially Wolvic, to be the browser that is open and is available to all these devices that now have the opportunity to support WebXR, right? Which they might previously not have seen as a priority, but now, since it's fairly straightforward to them, thanks to Igalia, Wolvic, and FutureWay, that opens the WebXR space now massively.
Well, we're all grateful to FutureWay. They sponsored the Polys and the WebXR summits and Wolvic, and they're doing in the community. And but what you just said is a perfect transition in to introduce Elijah. Hi, Elijah. Sorry you were sort of off screen there for a moment. Thanks for being here. This is Elijah from Zesty Market, which is actually one of the only groups that is doing a transactional infrastructure with WebXR. And so could you, tell us about how you're helping to create a monetization platform with WebXR?
Yeah, sure. So, so just to maybe tell our story a little bit from the beginning. When I first got into, VR, it was with the Quest 1, and it was pretty cool to see them ship with the Meta browser. At that time, it's called Oculus browser, and I think there was also Firefox Reality at the time. And just kind of checking out the experiences and the apps that were on the new tab pages, there were developers, like indie developers, just like building kind of big demos and experiments and stuff like that. And just talking to them, they had no monetization strategy. How are you planning to make this into a business? And so we started out very simply with a very centralized ad network. Later, and then we realized that there's so many different ways to monetize WebXR apps beyond just ads. I think we're starting to expand out into seeing more experimental and more interesting monetization strategies like in-app purchases, and then we realized that brings up a whole new suite of challenges like inventory and identity and wallets, and so I think from our humble beginnings as a very simple monetization solution through ads, we're starting to expand into some more creative outlets that helps developers turn what they're doing into business. So excited to chat about WebXR, and I think it's great to have Wolvic as another secondary browser choice. Just generally, I think it's good to have diversity in the browser space, and I think it allows it gives users more freedom to choose from other alternatives outside of the Meta ecosystem. So.
Well, thanks, Elijah. I think that is a critical missing piece right now that I think you're ahead of a lot of people working on. But that's what the metaverse needs at large, and certainly the WebXR ecosystem. So there's a lot of opportunity there. So I really think that your work is visionary. And so everybody, if you haven't seen zesty.market, please check out what Elijah and his teams have been working on. And next, I'm going to introduce our friend Dr. Keith Chan, the 2020 Poly winner for WebXR Education Experience of the Year. And also, Keith has appeared several times across the WebXR summits, even gave the Education Poly. But this all started for him because he's the professor of anthropology that actually took A-Frame and built an experience to be able to share the scale of the things that you're teaching in anthropology to your students. And so, Keith, can you tell us about how that all came about and how helpful it is to be able to use WebXR to create and educate?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me again. It's always awesome to be part of these events. But yeah, so it just started out with the Oculus Quest, as it was called, and just going to a lot of different museums with the street view and YouTube tours, and I was inspired to make one for what I teach, which is biological anthropology. So looking into ways to make that happen, I landed on A-Frame. There's a lot of great options out there. That's the one I went with, and just started building. And it wouldn't have been possible without all the hard work put into the framework, and then also at the browser level, like with Wolvic especially, it's very encouraging to see something that is going to be cross-platform, because then again, as Jonthan mentioned, it's easier on the creator side to manage things like that, which are more out of my area. And for education especially, one issue is that things going obsolete is an issue. So targeting things like that don't exist yet, that ability really makes it attractive, hopefully for other creators to get into and make something that reflects what they teach. And of course that helps at the education level and get students engaged and really see how cool their subject is. So yeah, it's past to present here.
Well, thank you, Keith, and that's a great lead into what I'm here to talk about, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing, advocating for WebXR in the community. And you hit on it, which is future proofing, because I've been a web developer since the 90s, and so I've gone through a lot of the different iterations of the web. And I actually have a video here that I'm going to put on and let play in the background, but it's a data visualization of 25 years of browsers changing. And so I'm just going to talk over this as it's playing. So all these years we have seen browsers come and go, and this data visualization, this is actually sped up 6 times to show you 25 years in 1 minute. But during this era that we're in now, Flash reigned supreme. And in 2010, Steve Jobs ostensibly executed Flash, and it died. And what died with it was all of my work and all the work of thousands of developers that have been from across the web. A countless amount of investment was lost, and this is something that is a peril to the ecosystem, where we want to see these experiences endure. So WebXR, to become a standard early on in the days of the metaverse, is essential for us to be able to have this content that we're all working on here survive. And that's really my interest in it. And back in the day, I had a friend who was sort of the archetype of the hacker. This is old school guy, and he was really a tough, rugged character. And he had people at Apple, and he was one of the early testers of OS 10. And I actually saw OS 10 in a command line loaded on his laptop in a diner, probably in 1999. And I said, well, why don't you build a browser? And he was like, no, I don't want to build a browser. So I think that stayed with me because it really gave me an appreciation of how much work it is to create a browser, and how important it is to have a spec working. So I think that when we're talking about Wolvic, I think that we have a long-term vision here where it's very good for the ecosystem to have choices. I think it's very important for developers to have a uniform experience, to be able to not have to debug experiences on too many devices, on too many different platforms. But the most important thing is that WebXR's reach is extended to users wherever they are. And we love WebXR because it runs on desktop and it runs mobile, but also the essential piece of this is that it is an immersive browser, and immersive is a very different thing. You are inside the web. That is what the metaverse is all about, and that's the potential that we want to see it live up to. So Wolvic is the only immersive only browser. There is no desktop or mobile version. Firefox is alive and well, but Firefox Reality is now Wolvic. So I think that for the developers out there testing, I think that as the Igalia team explained before, they have a roadmap. We're going to hear more about that from Kardell in the next hour. So please stay with us for that. And Aysegul's got to go in a moment, so I'm going to bring Aysegul back on. So if you could just share, is there sort of any insider things you'd like to share and encouragement for WebXR developers out there?
Oh, yes. So you were just talking about how wasteful it was that Flash went away, all of the developments went away, and that's very sad. So to emphasize your point, that is true for most of the mobile development or headset-specific developments. Previous headsets, games don't work in the newer ones, but WebXR solves that problem, thankfully, and we are so excited about being able to enable experiences on every device and having it everywhere. One exciting thing that I've recently heard from one of our editors is that on Meta Oculus, browser is the #1 application that's being used, which is really cool for us. And since we have the drafts ready to go, I think this is a great time to be an implementer or start experimenting, because things are not going to be changing very rapidly from here on. Yeah, that's...
Well, thank you. I'm so glad that you were able to join us on such short notice. We really appreciate it. And it's, to you and your colleagues at the W3C, I'll name Chris and Manish and Ada and everybody who we all know from the community.
Yeah.
It's so important what you guys are doing, and I'm really thrilled about the news coming out this year of everything that you've been moving forward and the charter renewal. So we're here for you for the next couple of years to see this thing through and to get WebXR locked in as a standard that people can really rely that their experiences that they build now will still be around.
Yeah. Thank you for being our biggest supporter and getting people excited about WebXR.
Well, it's truly my joy. So thanks for being here, Aysegul. I know you have a W3C meeting kicking off at the top of the hour. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you at the next event.
Yeah, very nice meeting you all. Bye now.
Okay, bye-bye. So now we have a couple of demos to show. I'm going to bring up, first of all, we have, let's go with Keith's first. Keith has a preview of his new experience. So I'm queuing this up right now. So Keith, if you'd be so kind as to talk us through what we're sharing here. Here is your thing. So take it away, Keith.
Yes. Yeah, thanks. So yeah, this is Paleo CA, and it is a dark ride. Another thing I did during the with the quest was watch a lot of like roller coaster dark ride like tours. Being confined at home. So I was like, I want to make one that's educational. So this is taking you through. This is downtown LA, and this is a model that on Sketchfab, Jack Simmons has put up for Creative Commons use. So just showing downtown LA, and there'll be narration that's better than what I'm doing right now. They'll introduce going into this time tunnel where you'll end up 40,000 years ago in LA and see what prehistoric life was like there. So it's talking about the setting up the different environments that used to be in LA. And all this, I shared this, a short clip of this just on social media, and got such great response from the community. So I'm very happy about that. So, okay, exiting the time tunnel. There's raccoons living 40,000 years ago. So maybe not the most outstanding prehistoric life, but they are there. And yes, these are models made by the La Brea Tar Pits Museum, and they also put out for Creative Commons. I made a baby version off of theirs. Got to have those. And so yeah, it's involved a lot of research in areas I was not familiar with, including like plant life and the environment. And that model is also by the La Brea Tar Pit. So yeah, hopefully fleshing it out. So it'll be like 6 minutes long, and it's a great educational experience for me making it using new techniques, and very happy that the people think it's cool and say they love this.
One thing that you didn't mention when we were going through the tunnel is that there's special shaders there. I believe the Ada Rose Cannon shaders. What was that effect that we were going through?
Oh, the time tunnel effect is actually just following some Blender tutorials about animation. What Ada Rose Cannon contributed, one of the things she contributed, she's accidentally making this project with me, with all her contributions to the community, is that some of the small plants are procedurally generated. They're procedurally placed around the scene. So every time you go through the ride, the plants will be a little different, just to make it a little more interesting.
That's so cool. And one last thing to remind us is that video that you just saw was shot in Wolvic. So one of the things that I did a side-by-side comparison, and one of the things that I thought was very cool with the way that the video turned out was that the color richness was actually very strong in Wolvic. And so now we're going to go to our second demo. So Elijah, I'm going to bring on your Robot Rally demo as shown in two versions of Wolvic, one running on Quest, one running on Huawei VR. And so I'm going to turn this on. So would you give us a narration, please?
Yeah, sure. I didn't know you guys had something. That's super cool. Yeah, I guess the left is Wolvic. No, the left is Meta. Wait.
Both are Wolvic. Left will be the Quest, right is the Huawei
okay,
VR.
Got it on the Huawei. Yeah, so with Robot Rally, I think our goal was to initially, we just saw a lack of multiplayer content and games that you could play for fun in the headsets. And so, Robot Rally was our very first kind of idea. We had a couple of prototypes before, but nothing that was like as fleshed out as Robot Rally. And by the way, this is the old version of the map, like one of the first iterations of the map. We have a new map in there that's much more arcade-like. And we just found that the demographic of gamers that play on headsets was the Roblox crowd, definitely younger, somewhere between like 13 to 20. Well, that's who Ghostface was. Okay. And so I think one of the things that we've been finding is that there's voice chat enabled. And so one of the coolest things about XR, in my opinion, is a social presence. And so we wanted to build something where random internet strangers could could find each other, talk to each other, and build some sort of relationship with one another, where Robot Rally becomes a social meeting place where people can find each other and have fun. And so far we're currently featured on the Meta browser, and hopefully we can be featured on the Wolvic browser as well. But so far we've had about 15,000 players come through, and at any point in the day, especially during Eastern time, evenings, we tend to there's always like 5 or 6 players there to play with. And so one of the questions that we always have is like, how many players are there in WebXR? How many people are actually using the browser? And I think Robot Rally, just by playing in the headset, you can get a real-time sense of how busy the ecosystem is. Truly, there's if you build something, if you're a developer, there's an audience for you to reach. So yeah, really excited to see it grow. And I think one of the things that we've been working on is identity, and so giving people an account so that they can manage their inventory, so people can cosmetics and apparel really make the most sense in a social setting. So yeah, it's something that we're looking to add next. Hopefully that was it.
Thanks, Elijah. Yeah, this video is ending now. So the next 8 minutes we have Brian Kardell is going to be coming back to talk about the vision behind Wolvic and the plan. But what we're going to do is a little bit of a lightning round here. So I'll start with you, Elijah, because we just left off there. So our lightning round topic is, what is the most exciting thing for you on the horizon of WebXR?
Yeah, no, it's a pretty loaded question, I think. But one of the things that WebXR has always been seen as like a second-class citizen compared to native apps that are on the App Store, mainly because when you're a big gaming studio or a company, maybe from a performance issue, from a performance side, you might not get the most amount out of it. But I think with changes to WebGPU and just the WebXR standard becoming more standardized, and the optimizations with the game engines that we're seeing, I think that we're pretty excited about WebXR becoming on par with native apps in terms of performance. And I think additions like PWA, and hopefully there's a lot less gatekeeping on the hardware manufacturer's side, so that we can get PWA apps into the app stores. And I think one of the main benefits of the app store is always discoverability and finding users, right? So one of the things that we've been trying to work on with Zesty is can we find users for other WebXR developers using our network that we've with the SDK that gets loaded currently about 500,000 times a month. It's seen by 200,000 people every month. So I think that provides a good starting audience for anyone that's building WebXR apps, but definitely getting on par with App Store native apps is probably something that's close to the horizon. And I think there's an education process that needs to happen. Just teaching users that one of the things that we've been excited about when we play multiplayer, when we play Robot Rally with the users on the Quest and other headsets, is they didn't know that they can play a multiplayer game in the browser. It's like their very first experience playing games in the browser, and they're like, wow, this is actually quite fun. And we're able to hear that in real time because there's voice chat, and they comment on it. So yeah, that's something that's really excited about.
You captured a lot of what we're excited about. It's there's so much in what you just said, but let's go to Jonthan next to get. So what is exciting for you about what is on the horizon for WebXR? Oop. Let's get your audio sorted. Let's go to Keith. Keith, what's exciting for you about the horizon on WebXR?
For me, it's seeing more and more people getting into it, and as people first having a multiplayer browser experience, or first just an immersive educational experience, that it's great seeing more and more people see this as a thing and see the possibilities too, and especially for students that finding out that they can be a part of this and make something and get into this area. That's really exciting for me. So it's really growing. It's in the short time that I've been involved here. I've seen it grow so much. So yeah, looking forward to more.
Yeah, absolutely. Mats.
Yeah, so back to where I started, to get the web to be the most important use case also for all HMDs and use the most, and also finally to make it easy to make the transition from this to the desktop and back, because each have their benefits, and it must be much easier with a link to just go between environment. And I believe we're going to see a lot more of that in the next year.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jonthan, do we have audio? Okay.
I really don't have much to add. I think the benefits of the web generally outweigh the native platform. There's some challenges that remain, but those are fixable. So what will remain in the end are the advantages. And therefore, I believe with more device adoption and just generally the communities expanding, the web is going to be the future of most XR applications.
Absolutely. Well, you guys covered it all. The only thing that I would frame within this is, the last 2 years or so, we've heard ad nauseum, what is the metaverse? And everybody's trying to describe what the metaverse is. And not that we need another definition, but to me, it's very sort of simple. It's a virtual universe. It's the web that we're inside of, and all of these services, whether we're talking about WebXR inside of a browser, we're talking about an app, anything that you attach to in a headset, the Internet of Things is all the internet. So this is all, the metaverse is the next evolution of the internet, but one that we're inside of, the matrix, if you will. So, going back to the way Elijah put it at the beginning of this was that WebXR has been a second-class citizen to native apps. And I really, what's exciting for me is to see its continuing emergence to be something. And now that we have more choices for more users to experience WebXR on more devices, I think it's going to have an exponential effect in the adoption rate worldwide, and the buzz is just going to continue to grow. And, from there, we're going to, see the immersive web become a major thing. So with that, everybody, I'm very, and I completely forgot to turn off Elijah's thing. Sorry about that. This is the wrap up of this. We have Brian Kardell coming on next. I want to thank you all for coming here to talk about the importance of the immersive web, and it's been a terrific panel. Thank you, Aysegul, for coming on earlier, and everybody have a wonderful day. Audience, please stay with us. We have Brian coming up. I'm going to bring Brian onto the screen now, and I'm going to say goodbye to our panel. Thank you, Mats Lundgren, Jonthan Hale, Keith Chan, and Elijah Tai.
Thank you for having us.
Brian, how are you? Welcome back. Can't hear you. Oh, I get to fill some air. That's awesome. Brian will be back with us momentarily. And so the exciting thing about this whole event here is that we are sharing with you. Brian's back. Or do we have audio, Brian? Brian?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we've got you now. Hi there. I was about to start.
Sorry,
I was about to start ad-libbing, but now I don't need to.
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not really sure what was happening. I briefly lost the connectivity.
Well, I was just to wrap up my ad-libbing there. I was just going to say how exciting it is that we have more choices thanks to Wolvic being on the scene now. And I really look forward to all the updates as it gets onto more devices, and continues to grow. And I'm particularly interested to hear you talk more about the multi-core stack you have. But before I turn this over to you for your presentation, you're the developer advocate for Igalia. Please tell us what a developer advocate is.
Sorry, the connectivity keeps freezing for me. Did you ask me what is a developer advocate?
I did. And we can hear you. Go for it.
Okay. Hopefully you can hear okay. And it's a really interesting question. If that was the question, the answer differs from company to company, and Igalia is pretty unique already. So I'm not sure that my answer is entirely like else's, but I think a good general answer to the question is that we sort of help find the path. Lots of teams who are often disjointed, completely disconnected, even that speak even different technical languages in terms of their background and everything. That's sort of on both ends, like the need for standards and their use cases and the problems that they're experiencing, that into standards and implementations and things, and then helping developers understand when features have arrived and that they're available and how they're useful. The broader community. For me, I think really it is about community, and so like I'm on at Igalia a number of working groups in W3C, even a co-chair of one. I'm part of some committees and boards, and I'm active in even public developer groups like OpenUI, where we work together with library makers. Also, given the unique sort of role that Igalia plays, I also write and speak a lot about the larger ecosystem and why it's important.
Thank you. Can you still hear me okay? You can't.
No.
If you
for just a moment.
Do you have the ability to switch to Ethernet? Is it possible that your Wi-Fi could be lagging? Because if you're about to give a presentation, we can actually hear you fine, but if you can't hear me, we're out of sync. So I'm going to turn this over to you. I hope you can hear me. And then you can just start speaking to your presentation. So I'm going to turn myself off and turn your presentation on.
Excellent. Is my screen, and confirm that you can see my screen, because I see the screen share, but it does not look like it's enabled. Excellent.
We can see you.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you about the vision of Wolvic. So we have this roadmap. If you didn't catch the details of it, it is available on our GitHub. There's a link to it in the presentation that I'll share. But we have all those things, and also we have big goals. We want to establish not just an open source browser that works across devices, but we'd like to seed that there's a choice in WebXR as there is in every other kind of environment for the web. We have set out this big goal of 2+ million users by the end of 2023, which we think is really reasonable across these 4 devices. And generally, we just want Igalia to be successful and to ensure that the web and its principles remain as we carry over into this sort of new era, new devices and new paradigms. That means privacy and security and security. And we think that to do that, we need to make those people happy. And to do that, we need to make developers happy. And to make developers happy, we need to help pioneer and improve the standards on the browser. And we just want so much. We want AR, mixed reality, and heat tracking, eye tracking. It's a very, very long list, because the need here is everything, right? So we're lucky today that we live in an era where open source is an important part of that. It didn't used to be that way. That a single company did everything, and today all of the browser engines, at least, are open source. In the case of Wolvic, it is the whole browser project. And there, yes, people can report issues and request features and send really help and really help them. In practice so far, we have improved it a lot. But it's still the case that some people and that is no required this kind of thing. And I'm pointing that out because like the whole world depends on this project. And that puts a lot of wrestling on each new organization. And that part of it is ultimately, it means that too much is centralized and dependent on too few things and not sustainable in the long run. I'm seeing messages about bad time that hope not to do that. Okay, so to make this a little bit worse, all of the supporting income that makes this possible today is from default search, which is, you know, a little bit gross in a number of ways, but at least one that I think we could agree is that there is just one more way that we have centralized all the funding. This is very evident in the case of Mozilla. 95% plus of their income comes from that, which creates an interesting paradox. This is the only model that we have. Mozilla would seem to be like the one organization that isn't owned by a country. But the only way that they can participate in this is because they have a lot of users before this model existed. It's almost impossible to create another kind of Mozilla org this way because you need to use it in order to get the revenue. So at Igalia, we imagine a better future. We don't just imagine it, we know that it's possible. And we want to tell you about why Wolvic is different and how we're going to get to all of these things. So for some background, Igalia is itself different. Our whole business is focused on this problem of healthy and sustainable open source that can do more. And we do more. We do a lot. This is a part of the next to Blink from last year, the Chromium engine. This giant slice of pie to the right is Igalia. And you can see that it's equivalent to several major partners like Microsoft and Apple. This part doesn't include Google Connect. This part is for WebKit, and it does include Apple Connect. You can see what a big Apple is. But look at that orange slice. That is, again, Igalia Connect, and it is more than everybody else put together. But what's interesting is how we do it. We do these great things. CSS Grid, we did 2 implementations of that. And has, the has, MathML, Big Decimal, Temporal, all these great features. Igalia is involved in helping bring them to life. And we do that by making lots of contracts that get to work on those. So that slice from Igalia is actually many companies that come in that way. So here's how Igalia is different than all the browsers that have come before. Companies working on this. First, we recognize it. We recognize that the current status is uneven and the future is kind of unclear. Yesterday, in the very recent past, Gecko was the pioneer in this space. Today, with investment from Jonthan and some others, Chromium is going out ahead on some of those things. But Apple and Sony are also interested in WebKit, and they're also very interested in this. Who's to say that tomorrow they won't be ahead? So one of the things that we have focused on creating a multi-engine architecture that allows us to switch that engine. So we think that's really interesting. Another really important thing is that we're introducing a kind of a new economic model that is based on our experience and what we know can work. It's made up of contracts, partnerships, collective support, and other sources. So partnerships, Igalia is partnering with PQA and Lyft. And when we talk about partnerships and other browsers, those are generally just in terms of they also make commits. But there's nothing there that is a commitment. But here we have a significant multi-year investment to fund and work closely together on the core problem. And also we think that contracts can play a role in that. You know, we're breaking it down into smaller pieces. Even small potential procedures is just collected. It's you don't know about Collective, Open Collective is a brilliant idea that supports lots of things. It's been used to great effect so far for many open source projects. Yes, I can turn off my video. Okay. Okay, so if you're not familiar with Open Collective is a brilliant organization, a brilliant idea that has been set up to support lots of things and has been used to great effect for open source. And Babel are some examples that are funded with collectives. And like a way to think about collectives is like Legos. Many small pieces equal a medium-sized piece, and many medium-sized Legos equals a bigger piece. So it doesn't matter how you assemble the funding. There are many ways. And if this sounds maybe a little radical, another accident of history was that Mozilla ended up owning the documentation of the web, but it was also not necessarily part of their core. It's not part of Firefox. So in a couple of years ago, we set up with Microsoft and Google and a couple of others, Samsung, Coil, a different collective called Open Web Docs. And today, that's what funds the maintenance and development and the staff writers that maintain MDN. So it's definitely a very plausible idea. We also know that it's plausible because about the same time, we ran an experiment called Open Prioritization that was looking at this from a different angle, which is not just how do we sing for it, but like how do we decide together which things should get the priority. So we offered 6 possible projects and took for them. And we were able to ship Focus Visible and WebKit. That's what the community together picked, and they picked it together sources from individuals to companies, and it was great. So today we're announcing the Wolvic Collective that allows anyone at any level to provide sponsorship. That can be ranging from, you know, what's a cup of coffee every month, or $5 one time, all the way to large contributions and sustaining contributions. You can read more about this on the Wolvic page itself. And we're really happy to announce this with initial 6K sponsorship each from MeetKai and Wonderland Engine. There's more about the benefits that you can read, but I'll just highlight a couple that I think are interesting. Just like how do we decide to get collective, we'll have a semi-annual town hall with Agalia, and we'll decide like what we prioritize with that money. Also, giving credit and acknowledgement to the people who are funding the work. We want to make sure that this happens so much today, and as a result, sort of one organization gets all of the credit. So we're going to introduce an acknowledgements page for that lets everybody know who is contributing and sponsoring the work. And there are all kinds of reasons that you might do this, including perhaps simple marketing, which is generally an entirely different budget. And that the idea of other means. We're not entirely opposed to the idea of you know, advertising revenue or some of the ways that the web has traditionally been funded. But we would like to improve the overall ecosystem here and make it, you know, more private and not track you, perhaps not an abundant model of ads, but a more exclusive model of ads. So this is just a screenshot of the Wolvic environment, the cyberpunk environment. And it's only here to point out that this is an environment. It is a static environment you can use in VR. All of the stuff is hosted in there. And there are a lot of billboards, and all of those billboards are currently advertising for Wolvic. But they don't have to. We could you know, put in there a film festival or all kinds of other ideas. So we're really interested actually in even exploring other ideas that the community has for how we expand this, because effectively what we're doing here is lots of companies subsidizing users. Today, that's done through default search. And it is, if you did the math, it works out to be about 50 cents per user per year is what the cost of maintaining the web is. And so there are many ways to achieve that, just like the Lego bricks model. So That's it. Thank you. I'm really sorry that the connectivity issues that we had. I will post a version of the talk online on YouTube that is without that problem. That's it. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Brian. Yeah, so sorry for your bandwidth issues. Thank you for turning off your video because we immediately got your audio signal back. So thank you to the audience for staying with us. And thanks for that enlightening insight into Wolvic, Brian. So we will see you again soon. And now I'm going to bring on to the stage my friend Julie Smithson, who is going to be having a conversation with James Kaplan of MeetKai. So thank you for doing this really interesting session. I can't wait to hear James tell us more about AI-assisted search in Wolvic. So here you go, Julie.
Thanks for having me. I'm ready to assemble a pack. Here we go. Hey, James, how's it going?
Yes. Hi. Good, Julie. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good. Welcome to today's session, and thanks everybody for joining us. I thought I'd start playing the part and ready for the pack. We've got our backgrounds on. We're immersed. We're ready to go. And today we're going to talk about MeetKai. So thank you so much, James, as CEO and co-founder of MeetKai. MeetKai is a conversational AI universe, from what I understand, and I'm going to allow you to talk the talk and share a little bit with us what MeetKai is.
Sure. So our background has always been in AI, and that was where we started a couple of years ago. And last year we sort of got a lot more interested in the metaverse space, primarily because we really see it as like the next platform, and XR really was that sort of conduit towards like what is the future of computing. And what we discovered pretty early on, though, is we saw like the restrictive app store model that was sort of popping up on XR. And that's what got us very bullish on WebXR. And that's what we've been really focusing on this year, is that I see it as, if we believe in the metaverse to exist, which we do, then it will likely have to exist on top of the web so that it can be an open platform. And that's why we're big believers in Wolvic and WebXR more broadly, and why we ourselves are also developing WebXR experiences as well.
Amazing. Well, I know we've got two demos we're going to take a look at today, and we're going to talk a little bit about them as well as the opportunities around them. So I think I'm going to be showing first. So we said the Louvre. We're going to start with the Louvre. Is that right?
Perfect.
Okay,
yes.
Here we go. Let me just pull this up and let's take a walk. Oh, I just need to reset this here. I'm assuming you can see my screen, right? Because we need to start in the Wolvic screen. Oh, not yet. Sorry, hold on.
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Let's, why don't, I'll hit play, and, what you're seeing just first on the screen is the Wolvic landing screen, which I think is really cool. I spent some time in there just kind of getting my bearings, and I was sharing with the team that the actual user experience of the Wolvic browser right upon entry is really intuitive. But I'm going to pass it over to you. Take it away.
Perfect.
Let's see what we're looking at here.
Perfect. So what you're seeing here is a Louvre that we created. This was actually work that we did some months ago, back in the summer, but we hadn't really worked on it that much since then, since a lot of this work was originally being done actually late last year to release as an experience in the Quest store, where the idea was going to be to create like an immersive museum. But we decided that was going to be too limiting, because then we'd be locked into Unity, locked into a store and all of that. So we restarted this development this summer, trying to build it all up into WebXR. So what you're seeing here is kind of a snapshot of where that is right now. There's still a lot of kinks that we're working out, but we are very bullish that it's going to be possible to launch this in the very near future. And the sort of thing that we're most proud of is that we're able to have an experience that we're able to build once and ship on mobile, desktop, and VR with sort of automatically scaling assets. So, this scene that we have right now, you're seeing this on Wolvic. It can also run in the Quest browser. It can run on a Quest. It can run on a Quest Pro. It can run on the Huawei headset. It can run the Lynx headset. Whatever device that has Wolvic, it can run this space. And what we're excited about is sort of what the potential this enables.
What is your name?
My name is Leonardo da Vinci.
Who was the Mona Lisa based off of?
The Mona Lisa was based upon Lisa del Genovino.
What are some other works you made?
Some other of my works are The Vitruvian Man, The Last Supper, Lady with an Ermine, and The Virgin of the Rocks. All of these are being displayed in my special Da Vinci exhibit at the Louvre.
Can you tell me about the Mona Lisa?
The Mona Lisa is a smaller painting that is less than 3 feet tall by 2 feet wide. This painting has been displayed here at the Louvre since 1797.
So what you're seeing there at the end is the thing that I'm most passionate about, actually, and that's where our background in AI really comes towards, is we really thought the advantage of the metaverse and XR and all these immersive spaces will be the idea of, like, it should be possible to have existences in the metaverse where you can't tell if it's a person or an AI, like, and it shouldn't matter. And like, that's what we're trying to work towards right there. And for that example of Da Vinci, that was an NPC we trained with our tech, and we've been building that tech for a number of years. But like, the Da Vinci NPC is sort of a novelty. And while it's interesting from an education perspective, it's not actually like really the real business value proposition for us. And what I think we can show next is the jewelry store we're working on, where that is sort of a lot more impactful,
Sure.
where I think a lot of WebXR value will come from, which is like, what is the future of retail? And like, I think that's where NPCs are really going to have the most value.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not to discount, going to the Louvre, it still provided people an experience like I personally have never been before. So, I always see images of the Louvre and they've always been 2D. I'm not saying that it wouldn't replace going there in real life, because I certainly would love to, but, I don't think, sure, retail is going to, build out that, the monetization and the, real dollar value, but experience wise, this obviously opens up a whole new world for so many people, and especially being run on the web, that just opens up lots of possibilities. So for so many people. So let's, sorry, go ahead.
For museums, the Louvre in general, the thing that originally motivated us to work towards museums or the Louvre was actually, like, if you think about the statue of David, it's like, I don't know, 18 feet tall, or it's really, really tall, right? And if you just look at it from a picture, or you're looking on a phone or a desktop, you can't tell that it's big. It just looks like a statue of David.
No, you
But,
really
like,
can't. You really
we
can't.
had like a little test. Like, the first time when I got a Quest headset, I just like took a model of David, put it in there, and like the feeling that you get from seeing the scale in VR is, I think, what's so killer. And I think that, like, there's been examples of virtual museums online for, I don't know, since AOL. People have been doing like museum walkthroughs, but VR, I think, is really sort of the first platform that really gives you that feeling of immersion. And like, every time I see that Louvre video, like every time I use the experience itself, right? Or we have a few different museum experiences we built, and in VR, it's really much more immersive than a video. And I think that's really the value proposition of VR, is that, when you try to do things differently from just regular like videos, and actually give a sense of scale, like the Mona Lisa, right? It's very small. If you always look at pictures on Google Images of the Mona Lisa, you can't tell that it's like.
Yeah, you know what? Just even just myself learning in the past couple of minutes, I didn't know it was only that size. I think I thought it was a lot bigger. So already you opened my eyes to something that I didn't even know myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So let's move on to your next, the next demo, and let's talk about this, because this obviously we're taking it out of going to a travel location, somewhere else in the world, but this is actually digging a little bit deeper into a 3D asset that would be in a store. So I'll let you walk through this. Here we go.
This is actually a pretty faithful one-to-one recreation of a jewelry store in Boston. And the idea of what we were trying to do here is we wanted to be able to recreate that store as quickly as possible, to try to get a lot closer to the experience of like shopping in a store. Since like, if you look at most e-commerce these days, you're just looking at a bunch of thumbnails. I think the entire value proposition of a store is like they're presenting like an experience. Like, they're laying out jewelry, they're laying out content, they're laying out a feel in the store. And with this, the advantages of VR, like, of course, you can actually like pick up the $6,800 bracelet, pick up the $500 bracelet, and you can like move it around. So I think we're going to see that in a second. This is the right video.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking, when we start dealing with pass through and these types of things, the try before you buy, place in your space, all the filters, the AR potential here is huge, especially running from the web, right?
Exactly. So that's the real value proposition that we see here for this store, is that if you look at a lot of e-commerce plays right now, people don't shop in custom apps for different brands anymore, right? It's largely driven through you're somewhere else and you get a link through an ad or some activation or whatever to a different store. And the value of the web here is that I think that's how people are going to shop in the metaverse as well, is people are going to be looking at one thing. You know, we go back to what Brian was just saying about billboard ads in the homepage, right? If you imagine an ad there, it's not going to say, click this ad, download our app, open our metaverse store, and then go here to explore. Instead, it's going to be like, take a look at our new bracelet, and you're going to hit that ad, open an immersive experience, and then maybe you have the pass-through try on there. Maybe you can just like look at different size engagement rings. There's a lot of different possibilities there. And for us, like the tech that we've sort of worked on here, and that's what's being shown, is largely related to asset scanning and asset optimization. And, you know, the real key here, like if you look at the bangle or if you think about the scene, and we're going to be posting like different versions of the scene online to kind of show the progression. But, you know, we have the ability to go from a very high quality scene and have it be scaling up and down dynamically. And the very fun part about the web is that like at runtime, we can be sending over different textures depending upon what device is running it. And with Wolvic, it can work on any device, right? We can build the same experience. And if Wolvic is running, I mean, right now, there are no high-powered VR headsets, but I mean, like the Sony one, for example, right, that's coming out next year, that should be capable of a lot more than the Quest is or any other type of XR2 platform. So if Wolvic is running on both of them, we can have the same exact experience running in Wolvic like this and have it be automatically scaling or downscaling the textures and lighting based on the scene. And it's so much easier than just an app. Because otherwise, like, it's just, you think about the size of a lot of these apps on the store right now, they're multiple gigs, right? That's no one's going to download a 3 gig shopping experience just to like look at a product.
That's right. Yeah. And it's funny because when this was playing originally, you know, you think, oh, it's just like their stores, but guess what? You can actually touch the products and the jewelry, and in a store, it's covered in, you know, protected by glass, and you can't, you know, pick up every single one. Guess what? Here you go. You can. And AI is going to turn that into such a personalized experience that, you know, maybe it stays, you know, only shows you amethysts. I'm an Aquarian, so I always go for the amethyst, you know, if I'm looking for that, or diamonds, for example. You know, it can personalize any shopping experience at this point.
Exactly. So if you look at the way the store is actually set up, like it's extremely modular. Like just if you're looking in front of you right now, like all of those display cases, the way the scene is sort of constructed at runtime is as the user enters, it just has like the shell of the scene. And then we can dynamically move around the assets. And that's sort of what we've always been passionate about when it comes to like AI in general, right? We have some applications for AI right now in e-commerce for like a search app for shopping. And the idea that was interesting to us for the metaverse is like, if you have a 3D space, the entire value of it being digital should be that it's customizable, moving everything around, right? So I think that, you know, what we're excited to do and move towards that direction of like the entire metaverse should be changing for each person, but still rooted in some concept of reality. Because I think when a lot of people talk about these custom spaces, oftentimes they sort of go too far off. I mean, you hear during the keynote by Meta talking about, oh, you know, Lord of the Rings homeroom or the Star Wars homeroom and things like that. But I think people still do want things somewhat rooted in reality. But my favorite example is like, we've been working on a clothing store for some time now. And like, as a man going shopping, it is frustrating that I always have to go in real life to either the top floor or the bottom floor if you want to get men's clothing at a, you know, department store. So the value of a 3D space is that it could be dynamic. People that are in there can drive what is in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's just so much potential and opportunity. And I guess, you know, we only have a minute, but is there anything else that you want to share about working on the Wolvic browser that, you know, you found empowering and, you know, made your demos successful today?
So we're big believers in Wolvic because it's cross-platform. We're also extremely big believers because it's open source. I mean, if you use Wolvic right now, the voice search try it out. If it's broken, you can complain to us because we're the ones that are powering it right now in Wolvic.
Nice.
We're planning
Great.
to add quite a few more features to Wolvic now that it's kind of becoming a more public product. I think if you look at successful browsers, the best browsers are those that pull in features from different viewpoints. Not necessarily the same corporate company that's powering, the most popular browser in the world right now. So I think that, our goal is to keep adding to Wolvic features that we're passionate about. I mean, I think extensions is the one that we're most interested in at the moment. I think there's a lot of value to be said about adding extensions to Wolvic that make it easier to either use certain features in your WebXR experiences or just make the web a better place in general. And that's something that, Wolvic and Igalia are open to compared to, the Quest browser where that is not a thing being discussed at all. And Chrome is even really removing real extensions. So I think Wolvic, by supporting extensions, will make it possible to make even better experiences much easier.
Amazing. It's always about building more efficiencies in our, whether it's the workflow or the user experience, breaking down those barriers to build a more formidable experience all around. So thank you so much for our conversation today and sharing your work. I know your team behind the scenes is proud of their work too. And congratulations on everything you've done.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Julie.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks again, James. All right. Up next, we've got my co-host, Sophia. Welcome to the pack, assembling the pack. Here we go. Let's test your audio because I don't hear you yet. Let's make sure we can hear you.
I was muted. Hi.
There you
go. So next up, we had the pleasure of speaking with Diego Marcos, who was unable to join us live today, but we had the pleasure of being able to pre-record with him on his thoughts of how Wolvic helps further enable A-Frame to help developers build for WebXR and on XR on the web. So let's hear from Diego, and then we'll get back to you. Julie and I will get back to you with our closing remarks on today's session.
Wonderful. Amazing. Here we go.
Okay. Hello. Hi, Diego. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again.
Definitely. Just to remind everyone, we spoke with Diego back with First Polys, and he was giving us kind of like a run-in of the projects he was working on A-Frame and kind of the evolution of all of that. And so he's totally appropriate to kind of bring back for these conversations that we're having, introducing a new browser. So Diego, for those of us that don't know much about you, please give us some more background information about who you are and what are you doing in the XR industry.
Yeah, so I started working on web-based VR back in the day. It was probably 2013. I was working at Mozilla at the time. I was working for Firefox OS, the operating system for smartphones, if people remember. And on the side, I got one of the first DK1s and DK2s from Oculus, and I was experimenting on the side how I could integrate a headset with the browser. We were not even talking about standards at the time, but it was just like I was toying around with the hardware and interested in VR in the early days. But Josh Carpenter from Mozilla was also in parallel interested, and an initiative internally started in Mozilla to create a new standard called WebVR at the time. For those that don't know, WebVR and WebXR is an API that browsers implement and allows websites to integrate VR and AR content. And WebVR was the first iteration of that standard API that is now, it's been renamed to WebXR to accommodate more use cases than VR. So at the time, I got involved with Josh, and I'm a web developer as background. And I realized, actually creating VR content is not easy if you have a web development background. So what can we do about it? And that's when we started to experiment with content creation tools for web-based VR. And one of the prototypes is what ended up being A-Frame. So how can we onboard the web developers to create VR and AR content? So what was the skill set? So they know HTML, they know JavaScript, they know CSS. So how can we recycle all that knowledge for people to also build VR and AR content. And in 2015, we released A-Frame. And yeah, and the rest is history. It's like 7 years after I'm still maintaining the framework, and there's like a great community around it, very dynamic, and a lot of people creating cool stuff with it. And yeah, that's today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you know, your work and your continued work towards these developments are definitely beneficial for the industry at large, and to help, you know, kind of onboard developers, like you said, to this new form of, you know, this new evolution of the web. And it's, you know, the evolution is exemplified by, for example, this new browser, Wolvic, being introduced to the ecosystem. So why are you in particular so excited about having a new browser introduced?
Yeah, the more browsers is better for users, and is better for developers. Like for users, is like, yeah, it's more options, more choices, and it's good to have competitions. It's like browsers, they're gonna compete with one another to provide the best experience and best features for users. And for developers, it's also really nice because it speeds up implementation of new standard and APIs. So the process usually is like browser vendors gather and they decide, they discuss what APIs, what new standards we need or we be interested to create. And once those standards are created, then browsers, they have to implement. And sometimes it can take a while. And it's nice to have multiple competing browsers, since when a browser decides to implement an API, it's going to put pressure on the others to also do it. And the result is that we have the newest and greatest APIs faster available for developers. And also, when it comes down to create new standards, it's nice to have multiple perspectives. Right now, like the Meta browser team is doing an excellent work at driving new standards, but obviously they have a certain direction, certain strategy as a company, and all the APIs and standards, they're going to follow that track. So it's nice to have other browser vendors and other voices in the standards that bring different perspectives and different priorities. That is not just what Meta needs. So it's going to create like a collection of standards and APIs that is going to have is going to incorporate more perspectives, and that's nice for developers and users at the end.
Yep, absolutely. Competition breeds innovation. It breeds acceleration, and, you know, then adoption as well. So I definitely think that's definitely true for that. And then specifically with what you're working on with A-Frame, you know, how does that affect what you're working on, and how does that like help progress your efforts?
Yeah, so it grows the pie. The more browsers we have, the more devices that they have a browser, and the bigger the audience that developers can target to create content. And A-Frame is as a content creation tool, we want to support every browser, we want to support every device. And yeah, the bigger the pie, the bigger the audience, the more developers creating content, and hopefully the more people using A-Frame, and the bigger the community. So that's great.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Diego, for sharing your thoughts with us. We look forward to continuing to speak with you and hearing about the progress that you're making, and specifically that progress as it relates to this new browser that's being introduced. So we look forward to seeing you know, all the new creations and you know, what goes on within this browser and beyond. So
yeah, thank you. Exciting times. Thank you for having me.
What a great interview.
That was awesome. It's so awesome to see people that have been with us throughout the years kind of come back and like continuously kind of give us their updates, and the appreciation for this new development on the web, the appreciation for what like we're doing to help, you know, further their voices and you know, their work to develop these incredible capabilities for us. And Diego is definitely doing a lot of that through A-Frame, you know, for existing developers to help onboard them into WebXR. So I appreciate him for that.
Yeah, I think, the key is that we remain a community moving forward as we explore these different browsers, platforms, the challenges. I've been reading in the feed of all the chat and stuff on all of our places that we can actually watch, people can watch this show today. And one of the big conversations is about extensions. I've been hearing that over and over again from my interview with James Kaplan from MeetKai and Jonthan Hale as well from Wonderland. Is wherever we can try and build extensions to help efficiencies and make that user experience as barrier-free as possible, we will get that adoption. We will have that interest and more creators in the space. So yeah, it's exciting times and lots of conversations, like lots to talk about. I know you and I behind stage were like, what are we going to talk about for 8 minutes? But there is so much to talk about, and we are going to need to keep doing these events with our community to hear how things are developing. What challenges, what questions does the community have? I can see they're talking about payment. How do you pay for things? How do you sign up in different hardware devices and things like that. So keeping our community going with these questions is so important. So
and what I particularly like about what Igalia is doing with Wolvic is that it seems that they're very open to discussions within the community and feedback, and they're welcome to feedback and continuing to incorporate that feedback into updates and next generations of their browser. And they've already done so much to kind of pull in the best of what we've experienced within other browsers like Firefox Reality and the Quest browser, and even more than that I even anticipated for using XR on the web. So it really seems like they have some foresight into what they want it to become. Again, full screen. I'll just go back to what they were saying, Brian, and then we're saying on the original conversation. The first conversation is, you go into full screen and it's 360 immersive. So that's like, these are like these new standards that they're like helping to push for, interoperability, easier access throughout the web, and it's really going to really help exponentially grow adoption, across hardware devices. So I'm appreciative of what they're doing in that sense.
Yeah. And, let's face it, nobody really has a handbook on everything that we are building today. So it will take time to work through these standards. And that's why this communication of community is so important, that we address all of the concerns that are out there, and that Igalia and, teams like, MeetKai implementing AI, that we do have those standards in place to make sure that we are setting ethical design. It comes back to ethical design and best practices in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, that being said, right, I know exactly where you're going with this, Julie. That being said, I'm sure we'll see a lot of this kind of talk and developments in the next polys that's coming up, right? On the third polys on March 4th of 2023. So I'm really excited for that, and to see like how much we've grown in the past year as a community building this.
Oh, sorry.
Julie has a graphic to share.
No, I know I do have a graphic to share, but I don't know. It shifted over and then it came back again. But there it is. I'm gonna but you and I are the polys again. This is our third year in a row, and we get to celebrate our community one more time. So nominations are open, and nominate the developing team, an experience. We've got a lot of different categories. Follow WebXR Summit Series and the polys, and you too can nominate your favorite developer or experience that's out there. So
we look forward to seeing you guys at the polys, and we're going to do even more things in the metaverse. So stay tuned for that, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for assembling the pack. Thank you both.